and for me, I was at a crossroads where Abby almost died. And I had been begging and pleading for months on end, like, God, heal her. Because I've seen miraculous healing in my life. I've prayed for people. I've seen them healed. And no matter how hard I prayed, I couldn't see a physical healing for her. I was angry. Middle fingers to the sky, man. I was like, I hate you. A good dad would be healing her. And I was over and over engaging in this judgment. And this judgment was perpetuating this illusion of separation. So I felt this weight of abandonment in my story. That the heaviness wasn't just my wife is suffering and dying. The heaviness was I feel abandoned and alone because I have participated in creating a wall between me and him in my own soul.
Yes.
And I sat there one day as I was just weeping outside of my office. There was a back parking lot that I was praying in and crying in. I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden there was this thing that came over me, and I was like, God, I realized that the one thing that I need to survive, even the loss of Abby, would be your radical love.
Yeah.
Is the only way that I could survive it. And the only way I can survive this is your love right now. And I have been alienating myself from your love in my need to judge you and judge this circumstance. And the fruit of it is so painful. And all of a sudden there was a shift that happened inside of me. And I was like, I can see that you are good. Regardless of the conditions around me, that does not define the depth, the width, the breadth of your love, your goodness, your kindness. These circumstances do not define you. You define these circumstances.
Justin Stumvoll, my friend, we're doing it.
It's happening right now.
Yeah, it's happening right now. Guys, you all know who Justin is. Dude, I had somebody reach out to me literally like 3 weeks ago, and they're like, have you ever heard of Justin and Abby Stumvoll? And I was like, man, I just had lunch with him like a week ago. He's like, you got to have him on your podcast. I'm like, we've already booked it. So here we are, man.
Oh my gosh. You're one of my favorite people to have conversations with. I want to say this. And I'm not just blowing smoke here. You are one of the most safe people to explore conversations around God with, because
Thanks,
you have such an open heart to it. And you are, I feel the depth of being connected to the radical love of God inside of that. And so that facilitates so much safety and stuff like that. So it's like, there's a freedom to just be around Jason. And so thank you for being you. Thank you for letting me get to participate with you.
I'm blushing. But no, for real, like, I feel the same way about you. I mean, we met, I don't know now, 4 years ago. I don't know how, but I had you on the podcast, and I was out in Reading, and you had me on yours. We've stayed connected, but then reconnected with more intentionality in the last little bit. The conversation that we had, guys, he came into Charlotte, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks ago, and we made sure to grab a lunch that I think went almost into dinner, several hours. And I feel the same way, man. I felt like I was talking to a brother who'd traveled similar roads, and always in the context of the love of God. You know, Paul Young calls it this: trust is his through line. And that resonates with me. And whenever I connect with you, I feel the same way. So, but we had a conversation together that I was like, and then you were the one that was like, dude, let's do it. A conversation about something that you've been investigating. Before we dive fully in, just share a little bit of who you are, what you're doing, and then we're going to dive into, what are we going to dive into?
Yeah, we're going to dive into having conversations, around near-death experiences and eternity, and how it's a game changer in understanding oneness with God. And it's a game changer in how we approach life. So it's actually, this is a subject that I'll jump into a little bit about me in a second, but it is a subject that it's one of my subjects that I'm most passionate about. We'll put it that way. Like, I just get excited. I'm like, I could talk all day long about this because it feels like heaven is so clear when you start like dipping your toe in these waters. But as far as I go, so, I accidentally started a business in the emotional health industry over, I think 15, 16 years ago, something like that. I basically came from a home that was really messy. And I didn't know till later on in life that I was battling complex PTSD from the experiences that I had from my childhood. But I did know that I was pretty screwed up. And I had a nice mirror to reflect that when I got married at 25. Right. And I was like, this is disastrous. We are going to absolutely destroy each other before we get off the ground if we don't do something about this. And so I found myself oftentimes in fetal position, sob crying, going, God, what did I get myself into? What do I do? How do I fix this? And what evolved was these beautiful exchanges between me and God, where he started revealing the nature of the human heart and the nature of love and how that heals us and how that applies to relationship. And I started having these just profound experiences that were bringing both healing to me and healing to my wife. And the overflow of that became like watching our friends get this wild transformation in their lives, where basically they were like, they would have like their friends and their family start making comments like, what are you doing? You're so different. Wow. Who are you talking to? And at one point, a close friend of ours named Erica, she had gotten so touched by her exchanges with us that her family had asked one of those questions, and they said, how much are you paying this couple? She's like, I'm not paying them. They're just friends. And they said, you need to go back home and you need to pay them for what they're doing. And so she said, guys, I'm going to pay you. And I was like, I don't have a business. And she was like, but you're going to get paid for time with me. So ultimately what that evolved into was word of mouth. And it became this, I'm doing one-on-one sessions, and it evolved into us having a life consulting business where we train people to do what we do. We create courses to help people get healing. But what's really cool to wrap that up about me is that it was all founded on this like intimate experience of me being like, Dad, I can't do it without you. Right. I actually need you to be involved in my story. I'm too broken to figure out how to fix this on my own. And there was this just like, he birthed all of this inside of me. And I just got to be this active participant who's like, yeah, my dad's in my story. Yeah.
Bro. And then you guys are doing, you have a podcast now called The Connected Life. Yeah. And that's aimed at the emotional heart stuff as well. Helping people get healing. And we have conversations about our faith. It's not a faith podcast, like in the sense of it's not aimed at Christians or anything like that. But we are authentically who we are. So we have conversations however, whenever we want to, without blinking an eye. So I've been spending some time on The Connected Life with you guys. The last little bit. Yeah. A few things I'm looking for some words. Shenanigans is one of the words that I'm definitely going to want to hear you say at some point.
I use that one. And rascals.
Yes, rascals. Yes. But I love the authenticity of how you guys communicate and how you live and how you make room for folks to know who they are. And it's in the affection of the Father. We've talked about this. It's my journey as well. The profound discovery of who he is, and the conversation that we're stepping into now, that there is no shadow of turning. You know, the greatest shift in my life 15, 16 years ago at this point, where I finally understood union as a foundation of all my faith, of everything, and have been unpacking that revelation ever since. And that's what we do on this podcast. Can we have a better thought about his goodness today than the last best thought we had? And you and I could go on that for a minute, but you got notes, bro.
Yeah. Today I woke up and I was so excited. I'm like, I want all my thoughts in this. I need to write some notes on this because I don't want to miss it. I do want to say, it is the the radical love of God that is the foundation for everything that I am and everything that I do. And that was something that was foundational in my early college days. I'll give just a little background on this because I think it's kind of important to it. Like, my first year of college, I was super depressed. I was planning on ending my life. I went to go get my gun at my college dorm. And right before I did that, I had a moment where I paused in my dorm room and I said, you know what, God, I don't want to die, but I don't want to live like this anymore. I'd grown up in a home that was a Christian home. And like I said earlier, it was really messy. It was super painful. And it didn't necessarily reflect this radical love of God that I heard about. And also the religious institution I was part of didn't reflect that loving creator.
Unconditional.
Unconditional loving God that wants to participate in your story. And that was all confusing. So I'd really rejected the institutional system and those things, but I didn't know where to find God. I knew God since I was 5 years old. There was a sense of him being present with me. And so I had this moment of pause and I was just like, I don't want to die, but I don't want to live like this any longer. And I was overwhelmed with the presence of God so heavy that I just fell to the ground and started weeping for the next 3 to 4 hours. Like I could not get off the ground as the love just broke through everything. Right.
This is that liquid love, right?
That liquid love. Yeah. And as I was there in this puddle of snot and tears, I had this thought of like, God brought me back to John 3:16, for God so loved the world. And he was like, Justin, love is the key. Yeah. Love is what it's all about. And if you'll focus on love, I'll heal you. And if you'll go on the journey of wanting to discover what love is, I'll heal humanity around you.
Come on.
And so that became this foundation for me, just going like, I don't have all the answers of what the Bible means, of what God is. There's so many questions, and that's irrelevant right now. What's relevant is what is love? What does it look like practically towards myself and towards the world around me? And that set the foundation for a lot of my exploration that we'll kind of talk about.
It's the same, bro. I've often said I'm a right brain guy in a left brain world. Experiential. I learned that way. Same with you, 5 years old. And we've talked about this. I think the last time I had you on, you had love as the key actually on the wall behind you.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In whatever state or whatever process you were at the time, I think that was your room. But, and we talked about that. That for me was, I know what love is. And that was the 16 years ago shift of truly understanding who he was. And then that was, I have language for it now, a Christological hermeneutic, but Jesus is what God had to say about himself. I can speak about it in a lot of different ways, but ultimately what I was saying is, I will not interact with you. This was the prayer I prayed. I will not interact with you based on my need or my perspective. From this day forward, I'll interact with you based on your love. And that is what I've been learning and unpacking. It's what resonates with me. And it's what makes room for the kind of conversations that we get to have on this podcast. I know you're having them as well, where it maybe is a little less comfortable in the church, or maybe it's not been had yet. We talk about, the universal nature of the love of God, his heart to restore all things, and explore what that might mean, right, in this life and maybe in the next. And I think that's I was telling you this story when you were here about my papa. I might save it for a little bit later, but I think every one of us knows someone who's had a near-death experience, and that has kind of almost it's like one of the next things I want to talk about, and you're like, dude, I've been walking down that road and unpacking that in the context of this love that doesn't leave or forsake us, right? This foundational understanding. That was the first thing for me, the foundational understanding that the Father doesn't look away, that there's no shadow of turning, that no matter where you are, nothing separates us from his love. And it is a restoring love, a love that reconciles all things to itself, not counting our sins against us, or our delusions, or our circumstances, or anything else against us. And when you get that, when you start to get that, then you get to have conversations about things that maybe were taboo, or maybe were scary, or uncomfortable, or no-go zones, if you know what I mean. So you've got stories.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a foundation laid. Go ahead, bro.
Yeah, I've got some stories, but even with that, like the most, I would say that within the religious institutions, the most controversial topic is the depth and the width of God's love. And it's the most offensive. Yeah. It's the one that, if we go far enough down the trail of the depth of God's love, it eradicates most of what we see as our human purpose and value. Like what we extract value out of all of a sudden disappears. What we get our identity out of disappears, because all of the stuff that we operate out of performance to achieve some sort of sense of value and identity, all of a sudden the foundation of that is shattered for people. And they're like, then what's the point of my life? If this doesn't make me special and I can't earn my way, then what is the point? And it's offensive. Like the actual gospel is truly offensive to the human condition, because it confronts all of our need for control. But anyways. No,
dude, that's good. You could unpack that for the next. I mean, that is it. It is offensive, offensively good. I mean, that's the thing that you've run up against. I've run up against. I'll often be in a room and I'll realize that my thoughts about the goodness of God are beyond the thoughts about the goodness of God that are in the room. And I know there's going to be pushback. And I know what I'm pushing against. It's that rich young ruler thing, right? If you're in the transactional relationship with God, you think you can do stuff. And you're like, what else am I lacking at the end of the, you're actually pointing that out. But yes.
I mean, it's like a statement like, I and my Father are one. It like ripped through a religious community, and they were so pissed at the idea that you might be one with the Father. It was so offensive enough that they're like, kill this man.
Right. Bro. Yeah.
And again, that's why oneness is, I mean, it's offensive, because it removes all ability for performance. Yeah. There's nothing to achieve any longer. But anyways, to kind of back up on this whole conversation around near-death experience. So when I was 18, I lost one of my best friends in a drinking and driving accident. It was a woman named Terry Ann. She was in a car. Everyone was drinking in it. She dies. And after she passed away, I mean, it shattered something inside of me so bad. It was crazy. It was the first death that I had encountered. And it was a couple days after she passed away. I had a dream, and she comes to me and she says, "Hey, Justin, I just needed you to give Tammy a message for me." And Tammy was her best friend. I wasn't, as far as female best friend, I wasn't even in that circle of stuff. I didn't relate to Tammy. I didn't know anything much about Tammy. But she was like, "I need you to give Tammy a message. I need you to tell her that I'm sorry that I missed her birthday." And I was like, "Terry, you're dead." And I'm like, and she was like, "Yeah, I know I'm dead. That's why I'm coming to you. Please go tell Tammy this."
This is a dream.
This is a dream. Right. So I have this encounter with her. Next day I go to Tammy. I happen to be going to the movie theater to just kind of like unwind. Tammy worked there. And I say, "Hey, Tammy, this is what Terry Ann said." And Tammy just busts into tears. Right. It had just been her birthday, and Terry had just missed her birthday. Right. And that was my first encounter with like the afterlife. Yeah. Being like, and for the years coming, oftentimes Terry would come to me in dreams, and I'd be like, "Terry, you're dead." And she'd be like, "We have this conversation every time I come to you. I just want to check in on you." Stumvoll, get the clue. And she would just be playfully just irritated at me each time. And she'd just be like, "How are you doing? I just wanted to check on you." And that was very much like, I was like, this is so interesting. Like am I getting a peek into eternity, and right. God's giving me the grace to connect to my friend. And so a few years later, my grandfather dies as well. Yeah. And my grandfather, he comes to me It was either the night of his death or the night after his death. And he comes to me and begins an apology tour. And he was just oozing with unbelievable amounts of love as he comes to me. And he was just like, I'm sorry for all these things. I was such a hardened man. You never deserved the things that I did to you. Wow. And I remember I was just like weeping in this dream. And I come to find out the next day that he'd visited my mom and my sister, apologizing to both of them as well for all of the things that he had done. And so as a family, we're getting to have this encounter with someone from the other side who's reflective of their whole journey. And this all will play a role later on in this conversation. But to kind of go back to my early college days, as I was on this journey of like connecting with the love of God, I like was willing to do whatever I needed to encounter Jesus deeper. I was like, I don't know what it takes. Right. And I looked at the scripture that talks about going into your prayer closet.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm taking this thing literally. I moved a space inside of my closet, and for sometimes 6 to 8 hours a day, I would lock myself in this closet.
Bro. Wow.
I'm in Southern California. It's the middle of the summer. I'm sweating my butt off. There's no air conditioning inside of this like 2-bedroom apartment I'm living in. I'm drenched in sweat, and I'm just sitting there like praying in tongues and meditating and just being like, God, where are you? Talk to me. I need to encounter you. And I honestly think I pulled on the heartstrings of heaven. They were like, he's gonna die inside. He's going to die in this closet one day. Like, let's get this kid out of here. And so one night, I didn't know I was in a dream. I didn't feel like I was in a dream, but all of a sudden I get transported to heaven.
In the closet?
No. I'm just sleeping.
Okay. All right. Okay.
I'm in my bed. I'm no longer in that closet.
Okay.
He snagged me out of my bed, and I was passing through this, I don't know how to explain it, but it was like this hall. I was shooting really fast through this hall of light and stuff. And I come into heaven. As I step into heaven, I look over and I see Jesus off in the distance. And my first thought was, oh my gosh, I can't be here with him.
Right.
I was looking at porn masturbating just yesterday.
Sure. Yeah.
And I start taking account of my sins that I think in my human mind have just disqualified me from encountering Christ.
Right.
And I could feel my own sense of shame. Now, out of him, I felt that he was enamored to be in my presence. Nice, like the King of the universe, the King of kings, is enamored at the idea that he gets to be in front of Justin. And dude, the love was so unbearable. Like that's the way to put it. His love is unbearable. Yeah. Like my being could barely bear.
Painfully good.
It's painfully good. Yeah. And I just crumpled in front of him. And it wasn't because I felt unworthy. Like I fell to my knees. I'm in fetal and I'm undone because I felt worthy for the first time in my life, like truly worthy.
Come on.
Because of the immensity of this radical love.
Come on.
And I hear this thunderous booming voice of heaven. I identified it as a father's voice. And when it spoke, it felt like it shook every fiber of my being. Like I felt like I was being ripped apart by this voice as it said it, but not like bad. It was just blowing me to pieces. Yeah. And it said, he will never forget this. And as Jesus walks over, he puts his hand on my shoulder, and I go into this encounter. And I've explained this before, but it's really hard. It's always hard to describe heaven with human words, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But I felt as though my being began at the beginning of time and I stretched to the end of time. Like I was one with all the fullness of time, stretching all across time, outside of earth. And then all of a sudden, I felt like this liquid love started to pour into me. Yeah. And I felt like I was merging with the liquid love and shooting through my being that stretched through all of time. That's the only way I can describe it. I was like, and I'm shooting at light speed, like you see in Star Wars or Star Trek, when you see all the lights flying by, and I'm just exploding through this stretch of time in my being. And I start being given these truths about life, which I couldn't bring them all back. Like,
yeah,
it was all being given and felt like it was being woven into something inside of me.
Right.
And it was these revelations where I'm like, oh my gosh, I understand. It was just knowings start happening.
Right.
And then I come out of that moment and Jesus begins to talk to me. And one thing that I noticed in heaven is that there's no words used. It is a knowing, because there's such a oneness that it's just a transference of truth back and forth. And you just understand. And so he's like, follow me. And he brings me to this room. And there was a couch. And there's like a long couch, big enough for 4 people. On the far end was a young teenage boy. And then his friend sitting right next to him. Jesus sits down next to that boy. And then I sit down next to Jesus. And the boy on the far end, he's just like, I just don't know what I believe to be true about God. I don't even know if God is real. He was like, it was almost tumultuous, the conversation for his own soul, because he's like really trying to work this out and wants to understand it. Yeah. And he looks at his friend and he's like, I don't know. What do you think? Do you believe in God? And his friend goes through some contemplation and starts on the same journey of like, I don't know what I think about this. And he looks to Jesus. He's like, I don't know what I believe to be God. What do you believe? Do you think God is real?
Yeah.
And Jesus just looks over at me and he's just smiling, like ear to ear. He's just stoked about this.
Great conversation.
Yeah. He's like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And he's like, he says to me something along the lines of, it's like, I love getting to be in this moment. I love that these two are asking these questions. And it was communicated to me, like, I don't feel the need to stand up and prove to them that I'm God and that I'm here with them. Yeah. Like none of it. I am just fully in the moment of their curiosity and their wonder and these questions that they're working out within their being. And so there's a full oneness with them inside of it. And what he basically communicates to me is like, this is this agenda-free love.
Come on.
This is what it is to just be in the presence of my creation, where they're at in the moment, not needing them to get somewhere. Like, because I grew up in a high stakes environment. Yeah. We got to get everyone somewhere because you're about to get toasted.
Yeah. And you better be certain about what you believe. There's no room for mystery, no room for anything like that. Curiosity, questioning. Yeah.
Yep. Any mystery, you're screwed.
Yeah.
I toned down what I was about to say.
Some crazy shenanigans there, man.
Shenanigans. And so I came out of that encounter suddenly and got sucked. It felt like I fell from a million miles in the air and just slammed back into my body.
Yeah.
And I just like wake up in my bed and my eyes are just filled with tears and my pillow is drenched in tears on each side.
Yeah.
And I feel the only way to describe it is this thick hovering presence of Holy Spirit over my entire body. And this started the process of redefining the way that I thought about God's interactivity with us, because there was something that he left me with, which was this idea of like, if they never changed, would you choose to love them?
Come on. Yeah.
Like if your only job was to be an active participant in each individual story with no agendas, and nothing changed, would that be okay with you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because see, he was at peace with that.
Yeah.
I at that time wasn't.
Yeah.
I was tormented. I'm like, the well-being of their soul is all on my shoulders.
Bro, there's a few thoughts, and then we can explore them. I love that you were in a prayer closet for 8 hours, but he met you while you were in bed.
He's like, I'm not going to meet you there. You'll keep going back to the prayer closet.
Right.
Come to the place of rest.
Come to the place of rest, and I'll come meet you there. I love, that's my Father's heart. He speaks in the language of our understanding, but he meets us where we're at. And that's significant to me that he's like, hey, let me meet you over here. I love your hunger for me, son. Let's do this thing.
Yeah.
And then the experience and the way you're defining it. Did you know then that it was heaven? Like when you, or did you come to that conclusion? And even then, what is heaven? What is it that you're describing right now? Because I know there's so many stories, and you probably have some. When you were here, I told you about my grandfather's story, and maybe I share that. But it's, I mean, I can share it just here a little bit. It was significant in that he had a heart attack, died. They brought him back. He came to in the hospital, and he made 3 realizations based on what he'd experienced. The harsh light of the hospital, the noises were different than grating, and he saw an alarm clock, and he saw time, and all those things actually were almost hard for him to navigate. Like they made him sad. Like he had just been in, and then what he described was that he was in heaven, and he described light, but it wasn't coming from any type of place. It was just everything was lit. He was with people, and he was communicating with them without speaking. They all knew each other, and were deeply connected. There was nothing hidden, nothing transactional, nothing. It was union, was what he was describing, and it was glorious and joyous. And then he realizes he's kind of waiting. He sees Jesus, and he meets with Jesus. Jesus is reading a scroll. My papa was writing a book, and he's reading a scroll, and he says, "This is really good." And he finishes. He says, "I think you should finish it." And he wakes up in the hospital. And he wakes up in the hospital room. And what he did, and this is fascinating to me because of your grandfather's story. And even, is it Tammy, what that came to you?
Terry.
Even Terry. And I'm curious about this, but my papa had some serious flaws, some deep wounds that he'd caused in his family. And I wouldn't have known him. I was young. And by the time this happened, I might have been 13 or 14. But he went on a 1-year tour and went to all of his family members. And when he got to our house, we were in the West Coast, Vancouver Island. And I remember they were there for 2 weeks. And later, my folks shared with me. We just connected. We played Skippo around the table, and he told stories about heaven. But he told me, my parents told me later that he'd sat with them and completely apologized for some of the great damage that he'd done in their lives, and that was what was happening. It was this tour of, he was a different man.
Yes,
he was that last year he was a different man, and the whole story is that he on the night that he finished his manuscript, he sent it in. Publisher said, "This looks good," and he went to my Nana and my aunt was there and said, "Okay, I'm going to take a nap and then let's go out for dinner and celebrate." And he passed away in his bed. Taking a nap. But that definition, that description of heaven, he knew it was heaven, is very similar to what you've just described. And the fruit of that encounter was a profound transformation that was relational in every way you could think, as far as legacy and family and pouring into all the opportunity. Your grandpa didn't get the opportunity per se to do it in person, but mine did. He got to actually get the opportunity. And to me, it's such a restorative lens, and it's telling us that this isn't it. We've been taught this is like this finality, that death is some finality. And I think we all intrinsically know and are fascinated by this long arc of love, by the fact that we are eternal beings in this moment, encased in flesh and blood, but that there's something greater that he has. So the things that I notice is rest, the transformation, and then there's the invitation into this quantum. That's the best way I can find language for it.
Yeah.
This thing that is before and is after, that maybe is the best way to understand union, where you're able to realize I was before and I am after, still distinct as you're still you, but somehow partnered with us. Speak to maybe some of the things that I don't know what's going off in you when I'm saying that.
Well, first off, I almost broke into tears again. Like, this is the second time I've heard this story about your grandpa.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And just even the way that he got to participate in the knowledge of love here, and he got to complete the fullness of what like he got given this extra time to complete this moment, and then he passes, and it's like, okay, now I can go. And just the redemptiveness of being able to participate like that is such a beautiful story. Especially, we have capacity for such darkness in our relationship with the illusion of separation, and to be able to walk into the light and come back and bring the light back with you like that. I am undone about the graciousness, right, of heaven. That's like, hey, even though this earth doesn't last forever and everyone's going to get out onto the other side of this, I would like you to go back and do some reconciliation while there's.
Yeah, and people ask me about the book, and by the way, it really wasn't about the book.
No, it wasn't. Not at all. The book was never the point.
There's some good things in the book, but it really wasn't about that. It was what you're talking about, which to me is the gospel. This is why it's the good news. It is a restorative, relational God who is reconciling and inviting all of us, all creation, to discover this love that transforms and restores and confronts. We've also we talked about NDEs from people who've experienced, a horrific moment after they've passed. And once upon a time, that would have terrified me through my separation lens. Yeah. But my understanding of even the fire today is that it is a purifying invitation to complete restoration. So maybe you could speak to that, but
I'd love to speak to that. To give context of the NDEs and my passion for them. So I had those encounters in my past, and then I listened to a book, a pastor named John Burke, or Berkey. I don't know how you say his last name. He wrote a book called Imagine Heaven. Basically, he goes out and he ends up getting put on this journey with God to start searching out near-death experience stories, and starts collecting hundreds and hundreds of them, right? And his collection of stories that he puts together, he really narrowed it down to people who had everything to lose and nothing to gain from telling their story. Like business professionals, like here's a doctor, here's a lawyer, here's like, if they come out as being seen as quacks, they actually like lose influence, opportunities and stuff. So I listened to that book, and that book, like, as I heard it for the first time, I was like, this is so, because I had a couple other heaven experiences. I'm not going to go into them, but I was like, this is exactly what I experienced, like aspects of it, at least understanding what the colors were like that I saw and things like that. And the nature of unconditional love. And it was the first time that I'm hearing more collective people have this conversation. So I listened to that book. It really jarred something inside of me. And then a couple years later, that was like 2018, a couple years later, I felt like God was like, Justin, I actually want you to start ingesting as many near-death experiences as you possibly can, because I want you to have an understanding of eternity, because once you understand eternity, you'll understand the purpose of your participation here on earth. And you'll approach everything that you're doing here completely different if you can see through an eternal lens. And an eternal lens doesn't actually take us out of the present moment. Once we have an eternal lens, we go, I want to ground into it, and I want to be an active participant, because this is a very unique experience that I'm having the opportunity to participate in, right? So to speak into some of what you were saying with near-death experiences, there's some universal things that I noticed throughout my journey of listening to them, commonalities that exist. One is that everyone, regardless of their religious background, which there are people from all religious backgrounds crossing over, and universally they all said, I met with a being or the presence of unconditional love. Whether or not they had defined that as Jesus or not, it was all over the place. I mean, you had atheists that were like, I met Jesus, he came to me, he talked to me. You have Buddhists who were like, I just met a family member who was oozing unconditional love, and that's how they, but there was a communication with unconditional love that they had the capacity to absorb in that moment, in that state of their life. Another thing that was pretty commonality was life reviews.
What is that?
So a life review is where suddenly people sat down in the presence. I don't think I've heard a story of a life review where they didn't say they were in the presence of unconditional love, that was a being of unconditional love right with them as they went through the entirety of their lives. Some of them said it felt like they were there 30 years going through that process, like, because time doesn't exist over there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But they would go through their lives and engage all major plot points where they brought love. They would not only feel what was going on with them, they would enter into other people's encounters.
Wow.
This is how they felt the love that I exchanged. They also went into, how did I hurt people? So they were present with the pain. Every place where they chose not to participate in relationship with love, they were available to that moment to see the impact of how that overflowed into someone else's life. And there wasn't condemnation. The only judge that was there to judge them was themselves. Their relationship with judgment. So if they had actually crossed over into a oneness with Jesus, like accepting him and his role in their life, they weren't sitting there in a judgment posture. But those who had yet to accept that, they're sitting in their own judgment of their own decisions.
Wow.
And regardless of either side, people felt grief. So there's this sense of, in a life review, you get to celebrate your participation with love, but you also are left with encountering the grief that comes with that. And so there's a Bible scripture that talks about there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth.
Yeah.
And when I hear people describe the weight of, like, let me back up. We as human beings protect ourselves with denial. So we live with a veil of denial over our eyes. We deny how we deny what our intentions were in situations. Right. We deny the impact that we're leaving because we are terrified of coming face to face with ourselves. Right. And what we see in a life review, whether you choose to participate and see yourself here, come face to face with yourself here, let go of your denial, humble yourself, and just be honest, or you want to put that off, you're still going to encounter that. And so there was this sense of this grief in the presence of unconditional love that people would have to lean into and come to connection with truth. And this is where, to me, God's always talking about, like, there is no darkness. Not everything that is hidden will be revealed. It's like you can try as hard as you can to hide from other people, to hide from yourself, to hide from God. But he's like, kiddo, there is no hiding in love. This is the fire you shall walk through. We will together look at this. This is not a punishment. This is not a condemnation. This is a revealing of the Father and who he is. And what you begin to see is that in the relationship with the life review, you begin to understand that earth is this place that has been established for us to discover the fullness of the Father. And I'm going to kind of unpack that.
So let me interrupt just to get clarity. You're not going to lose your spot.
Hopefully not. Go.
You're going to unpack that earth is the opportunity to discover the Father.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. You're talking about people who've had near-death experiences. And that's the commonality of all folks who've had near-death experiences is this, call it, what is it again? It's called
a life review.
A life review, which to me is the description of a restorative justice.
Yes.
That's taking place in their life. Is that a fair way to describe what? It's
fantastic. Restorative justice.
So that you actually, this is why I can say I am unashamedly leaning with all my faith in the universal reconciliation state of being. And I've said that before. I'm not making news on this podcast, but because I'm convinced that it's not a universalism that doesn't address where we've missed the mark. It's a universalism that actually walks with us, removing shame and condemnation to actually allow us to fully, authentically, this is what you're describing to me, navigate in such a way that we are confronted with the places where we've not lived in love, as love, convinced we are and have become love, and we are able, therefore, it's not some dismissal of the issues in our life. It is actually the invitation, like you said, the weeping and the gnashing of teeth is the restorative process to invite us fully into who we truly are. That's what you're describing. And
yes.
To me, you're saying everyone who's had a near-death experience has walked through the courtroom of heaven, if you will.
Yes.
Which is a restorative lens on justice that actually confronts and transforms. Is this what I'm getting right?
Yes, exactly.
So now we're on earth. If you want to carry that, you can. But now I want to hand it back to you because I was wanting to make sure I understood. Hey, guys. So we have a conference coming up. It's our second annual family reunion in Charlotte, North Carolina, my backyard. And last year was so sweet. I'm really looking forward to this year, September 25 through 27. Baxter Kruger is going to be with us. So thankful for him. Damon Thompson is going to be with us. That's been a new friendship, and I'm incredibly grateful for him. It's going to be a time, guys. Dub Alexander will be with us again. Love Dub and all that he brings. Brooke Waters, whom you guys know and who helps put this conference on, she'll be with us. And Mark and Julie Appleyard, good friends of mine, dear friends of mine. They've been on the podcast. They're going to be with us, along with Michael and Bethany Wallace, who led worship last year. It was unbelievable, and it's going to be good this year. I'm really looking forward to this. September 25 through 27. You can learn more about it at afamilystory.org, afamilystory.org. We have the early bird tickets right now, so if you sign up now, it'd be the most cost effective. It also lets us know how to prepare for you. Guys, there will be fellowship, there will be worship, there will be deep end conversations and teaching around this Trinitarian faith, this beautiful gospel, this good news that only gets better, and the opportunity to connect again as a community. I'm so grateful for you all, so grateful for the ways in which we get to continue to discover and explore the goodness of God together. And I'm excited about the opportunity to do it face to face, September 25th through 27th, afamilystory.org. Come hang out with us. Oh, by the way, I'll be there too. All right, I'm going to get back to the podcast.
No, you did that so eloquently. That is exactly what should be that I've extracted, right? Yeah. out of watching this. I'm like, we can't escape ourselves. So people, we as humans, because of our relationship with performance, we also have a relationship with punishment. Yeah. So in our connection to this illusion of separation, we operate in performance, and then performance says I must be punished.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's you win or you lose. Yep.
So people are offended with the idea that we all cross this line, and they think, so there's no justice then. You're not being punished, there's no justice. Because we get this lean into what we think our illusion of justice is, right, based on our broken perspectives, right? Yes. And so I'm like, no. Justice is actually the full redemption of the entire human spirit into the knowledge of the oneness with God, the unconditional love being made manifest. It's the restoration. It's sitting fully present. Like justice is like, you cannot escape yourself.
Yeah. And you're feeling the grief. You're feeling the impact.
You feel the impact that you've made on every individual. Like I think of guys like Hitler.
Yeah. It comes up. You can't have this conversation without him showing up.
Right. Because that's a question that people ask. What about this guy? They go, who's the most horrible human being we can think of? Right. And I'm like, it was probably an incredibly daunting, painful journey of engagement to see the depth of what he unleashed on the earth when he operated in completely out of the bounds of love.
Bro.
And I would never want to have to sit with the grief, the weight of the grief that was in those shoes. But luckily for all of us, the grace of heaven says that unconditional love will sit down in our presence with us as we weigh through that.
And the thing that I love that circles back even to your grandfather's story and my grandfather's story, is I believe that part of the restorative justice is you don't just feel the grief, you eventually get the opportunity to make it right, to actually to apologize, to own the thing that to the person that you hurt. Like, to me, that is the full, the best way to describe it is eye for an eye, through a retributive lens, is that if you take my eye, I take yours. And of course, in the old, the way that you would say that in the Jews, the old, how they would say it, but our forefathers would say is now we have a bunch of blind people, essentially.
Totally.
Like it doesn't serve anyone. You got two blind people. But an eye for an eye is also looked through this lens. If I take your eye, then I become your eye.
Yes.
That I'm actually aware of what I've done, and I've repented, and now I have owned it, and now how do I restore to you what I've taken to you? This is the difference that we're talking about.
Yeah. And that's why and that's exactly why I brought my grandfather's story into this, is because I believe that my grandfather sat fully down and participated in his life review.
Wow.
And I believe
I'm getting chills, man.
that he's in eternity. And we think of these people where we're like, they hurt us, they did these horrible things to us, they caused us pain. And I'm like, none of us are escaping ourselves, kiddos.
Right.
And the way that we are ripping into people, trying to get them to understand us. And there's a peace that surpasses all understanding inside of my soul as I think about the eternal experience, because I'm like, I don't need to worry about whether or not they understand me here and now, or they see their participation. They cannot outrun themselves. And their eternal self is going to have an encounter with the love of God in a way that they will look at how they participated, and they will be as equally repentant to me as I will be to every person that I brought pain and suffering to in the way that I acted.
Which is eternity, eternal life, which we're in right now. We're in it right now, man. This is eternal life. This is so good. All right, the Father and our discovery of him here on earth.
Yeah. So one of the things that they talk about, this is another commonality, is that most of them say, I knew that I had been alive prior to coming. Like I knew that I was given the choice to be on earth. So let me kind of like jump into a little depth on this. So a lot of them talk about the idea that earth is a life school. It's like this school that we go to ultimately reveal the depth of the Father. Like, so we'll think about it like this. We take something like, say, chocolate. And if you eat chocolate since the day you're born to the day you die, like all you ever have is chocolate, you don't know how delicious chocolate is. But I mean, if you're handed a handful of rocks to try and chew on and dirt, you're like, dirt is garbage. This is terrible. Chocolate is amazing. Let me tell you the depth of how great chocolate is when I get to eat chocolate. So there's this idea that like in our eternal self, we don't have an experiential knowledge of the Father. Like all people are one in eternity, and we know that God is good, but how can you know the depth of God unless you can measure it against something?
Sure.
So the idea is that earth is a time dispensation, one of the many places that our spirits can visit. And that's a whole other conversation that opens up like,
right.
I mean,
are we going to talk about the pyramids now?
God is vast, creation is vast, but earth is this time dispensation where the illusion of separation from love is a prime breeding ground for us to operate in ways that act in direct opposition to that nature, right? Yeah. So in our relationship with fear, we all manners of shame, condemnation, and manifest, and out of that fear, we hurt one another, and we do things that all of a sudden require forgiveness. All of a sudden, in a space where fear exists, unkindness, harshness, betrayal, all of that exists. And what is revealed is forgiveness. What is revealed is patience, kindness, gentleness. Like the attributes of God are put on display in a time dispensation where we can actually seemingly alienate ourselves and seemingly step out of this nature to have the nature of God revealed. So all the murders, the deaths, the tragedies, the sufferings, all of these things that we see right here, we see the answer. Like Christ comes and reveals the Father, the nature of the Father, to the spirit being. So here you have us as spirits where we go, basically a lot of people say that Earth is like a lottery ticket. Like it's a lottery ticket to get to go to Earth. It's a coveted place where everyone's like, I want to go to Earth. You're so lucky if you get to go there. You get to know something about the Father we didn't. Right?
Yes.
And so as we say yes to that, our spirit is here to apprehend something. We're not just here to survive this experience. We're here to apprehend the knowledge of the Father, to have something about the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, that triune being revealed to the depth of us through an experiential encounter.
Wow.
And so this is why, like, a lot of people are sitting here being like, I don't know, I guess we're just born and we die and I just have to survive this hellhole that is Earth. And I'm like, you are wasting this. Like, this thing isn't happening to you. Everything about it is happening for you. Your eternal self is screaming out, I want to be there. I want to learn these things. And you're dumbed down, numbed down to this whole encounter. And there needs to be an awakening. You're not. So most Christians are going, give me a ticket to get off this planet and get to heaven. I just don't want to get roasted and toasted. And I'm like, what a waste. What an utter waste of this encounter.
Wow. I have a friend, Andy Squires, who years ago said, and he was in the middle of he'd lost some friends over a span of a short period of time. And on the backside, he made a statement. He's like, Earth is the only place where I get to discover the love of my Father in the midst of this pain.
Yes.
And I remember when he said it, I thought that is, first of all, the most beautiful reframing. To be able to live in the context of something that is truer than what you're actually experiencing. But it also landed with what you were talking about, the idea that that we are, because some folks who might be in the middle of some horrific experience, or maybe have experienced something done to them, born into a place where they got no say throughout their entire life. Like there's some tragedy, some darkness in this world. Might hear what you're saying and go, I'm having a hard time wrestling with that. But there's the larger scope of you're describing the nature of God and the fact that we get to discover his affection and his kindness in ways that maybe you wouldn't be able to discover outside of this time and living in the context of time.
Yes, correct. And this is what's going to be offensive to those people you talked about. And it was offensive to me when I started listening to this, but a lot of people describe offensively good.
Yes.
It's offensively good. A lot of people, as they were choosing to come to Earth, they said things like they were longing to have a certain level of an experiential knowledge of love.
Can I say something too? You're speaking, and I love this, and I know we're having a conversation, lots of folks will go, well, this and that and the other. But even what you're describing right now, love operates in the context of consent.
Yes, it does.
Yes. So you just described a choice that was made. And so consent is the high watermark of love. You without it, we don't have love. So carry on. Sorry. I'm noting that.
No, I love that you pointed that out. It's critical for this understanding, what you just said here. Because if I'm just thrust on Earth, I had no choice to be here, and that violates the law of love in the first place.
Sure. Yeah.
So just based on what the law of love is, there has to be something to what they're saying that has truth, because there's a choice. There always had to be a choice. There's always choice in love. And oftentimes, like while people are describing what they want to experience, you know, they'll have angelic beings, whatever those that happens to be that they're describing, say, just so you know, in order to extract that out of earth, it's going to be really painful. It's going to cost you a lot. Like the level of suffering that's required to have the level of that revealing in this journey that you want to take is immense. And so bro, I don't even know how many people I've listened to tell a story just like this, where they were like, I don't care. I want it so bad. I'll pay whatever price I have to pay. I want to go. And there's a lot of people that describe.
When you say you've heard that story, that's folks. Where's that story coming from?
Near-death experiencers over and over again. Like I have heard so many of them when I'm listening to these, where they're stating that, where they were over and over again willing to pay these prices, like to agree to the suffering. And again, it's known that Earth is one of the hardest schools, and as you're signing up for it, you're saying it's almost like contracts, like you're agreeing to a contract. Yes, I understand terms and conditions of the messiness of this. Right. You've told me it's going to be hard. I'm saying yes to it. So a lot of us live as victims of the conditions of the fallenness of this world. Now, this conversation is what takes people and turns them upside down, right? Yeah. They're like, did I choose this? Do you know how much suffering I've been through? I don't know. But I'm just telling you, somewhere inside of this conversation is choice. And you have to consider, like when I considered the reality that I may have said yes to the condition of all of this, to have a nature of the Father revealed, suddenly I don't feel so victimized by violence that was extracted on me and abuse stories that happened to me and stuff. I'm kind of like, I don't know where it fits. I don't know that the Father's creating any of it. It's just, this is a place that's fallen and it's messy and you're choosing it and it'll reveal something and it's all going to be redeemed, but it's not going to be easy.
And if you think about what we get weepy about, what you and I burn for, it's the discovery that he was always with us, that he never left us, that he is good and trustworthy even in these places. That's the stuff where I go, this has been the most transformative part of my life. This has been the best part. This is where I've passed things along. There's a lot here, man. Because also I'm wondering why I just didn't say, well, I'll take Bono's life.
You know?
Sorry.
No, it's great because that's a question, because this opens up this wild part of our being as we're considering the possibilities of this, of like, well, why didn't I choose something easier? Why didn't I choose, you know? And I'm like, it's not about why. Like, to me, I'm not.
Yeah, that's almost always the wrong question.
It's always the wrong question. Yeah. My question has become, in all the conditions and circumstances that are painful, difficult, what to do? What do I do now?
Yeah. Well, it's the disciples saying, "Who sinned that this man's born blind?" And Jesus saying, "Wrong question." It's the why question. Why is he blind? And Jesus is like, "No, he's going to be healed. Watch." Yeah. And then heals him. This is so that I can be revealed. It's literally what he's saying. It feels like that's what you're describing.
Exactly. Yeah. So you see, like, even the idea of Jesus came with the Father, chose to come here. Yeah. Like the rest of us, and participate in this. And you see that, like, if we're talking theoretical, we're just kind of imagining here, because like, who knows what afterlife is like until you're there. We're just hoping we've got some signs here along the way. Right. But you look at Earth. If Earth is actually a school to reveal the fullness of the Father, Jesus was like, oh, I was always going to come sit down in the middle of it with all of you guys. And I knew it was going to be tormenting. And I'm at the very foundation in the center of it all. And I'm going to walk all humanity through the entirety of it. And I'm going to reveal the Father in me manifest as a human being fully. You'll see the Father as you see me, you'll see the Father. And I'm going to liberate you all out of this. All of you that feel hopeless about the current present darkness, that's okay. It's all part of the journey that you're on, and you'll all be restored and redeemed back to the Father's love from where you came. You'll always come back to. We'll get you there on this ride.
Yeah. I'm curious. So are we mean, there's all kinds of things. We've had some of this question. We're having this conversation. This is a continuation of our conversation. I was like, wait, let's record it. but you know, I have conversations about new heaven, new earth. The idea that we're called to pray on earth as it is in heaven, that the kingdom is meant to be established here, that it's not just at hand, that it's within us, that there's, if the idea that this is some science project, right? Because you could start to go down that road, totally. As opposed to, no, this is an opportunity to live in a restorative way, where this place that we're living in is the Garden of Eden, is a restoration to the fullness of a life that doesn't participate in the knowledge of good and evil. Correct. What does it look like to live in such a way where you're unaware of evil because you have been so restored to this union, living in this context? And so there's a part of me I haven't worked it all out. I don't know. I don't get into these. I have the love conversation over and over and over again. These types of conversations get me fascinated because I think, man, I'm convinced I want to live in a way where I'm more aware of his kindness today than I was yesterday, more transformed tomorrow than I am today, living as that expression, because I'm convinced that that's the thing that ultimately transforms. That the goal isn't he put a rock for a science experience, but that we're invited to restore and redeem this place we're in, so that in time and outside of time, all things are being redeemed. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, you're talking about the difference between some maniacal happenstance, like, science experiment, let's just see what happens, versus this is actually deliberately designed. There is an active, deliberate participation from God and from us that is required of this space, and that it was designed for a depth of connection to the Father, understanding of the Father. Like it's everything about it is deliberate. Everything about it is to also be like, you're talking about co-creation. Even my head's bouncing around, but like, you're like, what happens when the children of God awaken to the reality here on earth, to the truth of heaven, and then begin to co-create out of that radical forgiveness, that radical love, they begin to extend themselves on earth as it is in heaven. What is the way that we impact this? Because even though we get choice, it doesn't mean we don't have impact. It's not like this is just set up the way it is. It just exists. It's like, no, this is here, and you can move it, and you can help foster a revelation of the depth of God while you're here for all of creation that's here.
Yes.
It's purposeful. And that's what people have lost in their dead, empty religious institutions, is that this was all purposeful.
Yes. Yes. Right. Well, and then in that, the idea that time itself, that everything is getting healed, that whatever paradigm you're navigating in, that you know, we talked about consent, and why are there two trees in the garden, right? Because there had to be a choice. If you can't reject love, you can't choose love. But what if that's the restoration, that ultimately every knee bows and every tongue confesses, not from some authoritarian controlling paradigm, but through this justice, this awakening, this coming into alignment with who we are created to be, so that all things ultimately are restored. Now we're getting into, go ahead.
Well, no, I'm so excited about this part of what you're saying. Yeah. Because so when people think about universal reconciliation, they're offended with it because they're like, well, then you don't have choice. I'm like, no. Every knee will bow and every tongue will confess, again, is not an authoritarian statement. It's a truth that all people will eventually return to the truth of love through their process that they're in. It's just like, it's a matter of fact, like, oh no, you totally have choice, and you can delay, you can alienate yourself as long as you want to alienate yourself. Right. It's totally up to you.
Right.
But you're not going to want to sit in that suffering that long. Like once you realize that there is a way out of your suffering, people yield to that process, right? And all things are redeemed. And like, I laugh in the face of the Jesus that the predominant church believes in, because I'm like, it's a weak Jesus, because it's like this Jesus that can save like maybe 25% of humanity. Like, we have this.
Only 25% of the soil is good, brother. The other 75% is not good,
and they're all going to be thrown into that fire and burned away.
For some reason, he keeps sowing on all the soil. I don't know why he sows on all of it, but
totally. And I'm like, so you're telling me that the majority of creation is lost to some dark force, and you're trying to tell me that Jesus was this all-powerful being that is the great redeemer, but he can't beat out this dark force for all of humanity's well-being.
Right.
I mean, I'm like, I don't want to serve that Jesus. That Jesus is powerless.
Yeah. Right. Well, it makes Adam more powerful than Jesus too.
Correct.
Right. It's like we're all universalists when it comes to Adam.
Yeah, so, Adam's the Christ ultimately at the end of the day in that story. If Jesus can't redeem what was broken inside of the human condition, right?
Yeah, I love the way that the liberties that I get to have with this conversation with you, and because of my conviction, and because we've grown so convinced that love doesn't leave or forsake. We started there, but even the conversation we're having. You know, I use the Emmaus Road. My book, Leaving and Finding Jesus, is basically what you just said. It's like I'm leaving all these weak Jesuses, all these Jesuses of our making and in our own image and likeness. These ego-driven, egotistical Jesuses that are incapable of truly loving us. But I use the Emmaus Road as the model, because to me it's everything that you've been describing. It's that conversation those two guys were having while you and Jesus listened in. It's Jesus showing up unfamiliar to them intentionally, because their preconceived ideas of who he was would have gotten in the way of what he wanted to reveal to them. And actually, I have fun with it. I say, he didn't even introduce himself with the name Jesus. They didn't even need to know his name. He had to have given them a name, I would imagine, because that's what strangers do when they meet. Baxter Kruger said it's Manny because it's Emmanuel, short for Emmanuel, God with us. I love that. But the idea is that he doesn't have an ego, that he's walking with us to bring us to a revelation of who he is. He's speaking to the burning, but we don't even have to know his name, because that's what love is. It's what you said, walking with us in the moment. This is the relational thing you're talking about, even in NDEs that I'm hearing you express. Yeah. This form of a relationship where we're working it out together, and he's walking with us, revealing to us who he is, and in no hurry. Yeah. Hoping that we get the burning. And when we do, and if we really are paying attention, we'll force them into the house, like that story. You can't go. This stranger, you got to come in, and eventually the bread is broken. Our eyes are opened. There he is, and we get the revelation. But this is, I feel like what you described in an NDE is it's revelation that's happening on the other side. Yeah. When
I think about this, that was so good what you're saying. It made me think of like, we're saying yes to being here. And so often we're fighting, kicking, and screaming about our opportunity to be here.
Right. It's a good reframe, bro, to be able to, that's beautiful. Yeah.
I have an opportunity to participate in something that's very magnificent. And I can choose to waste my time here fighting against everything, fighting against the truth of how I'm showing up, trying to protect the shame that I hold inside of me. I can sit here and live offended with people. I can live offended with God, and I can, and nothing's a waste, but it's almost like I can waste away a beautiful gift that my heart longed to be here for, or I can say, I will fully say yes to this present moment. I'll stop fighting it. I'll stop seeing it as a waste of time. I'll stop wanting to get out of it. I'll start accepting the possibility that I'm not separate.
Yeah.
Here and now in this moment. And I will allow myself to apprehend everything I may have dreamed to come here for. Like in my life, I've begun to ask myself, what was I dreaming about? What was it that I was wanting to apprehend when I came here?
Yeah.
Because I'm no longer fighting my earth experience. I am now allowing everything to happen. This is the peace of God that surpasses all understanding, where Jesus is like, stop worrying. Worrying's done nothing for you. Not one day, not one moment of worry or your fear is going to add a day, a moment, anything to your life. It adds nothing to your life. So he's like, Jesus is this expression of what it is to live on earth. And his arms are wide open, and he's just like, I am allowing myself to float presently through this, making direct decisions as they come up out of the nature of love, to love well, whatever's required of me in that moment. Yeah. But I'm not trying to control. I'm not trying to fight. I'm not scared of, I'm not living in the future. I'm not living in the past. I am here present, one with the Father. I and the Father are one. I'm reflecting what the Father's up to in this moment as a friend who's participating with me. Yeah. And I'm living fully in it. Whether that gives me 80 years, 33 years, it's irrelevant. He was fully present. And so to me, I have this opportunity to just be fully present and to experience every experience that happens. I can sit and I can judge all these experiences, or I can let go of my judgments. And I can begin to go, I don't know, today, my wife passed away. I'm not here to judge it. I'm here to say, all I know is that I feel pain today. Yeah. Today, my business fell apart. I'm not going to judge that. I'm not going to judge me. I'm not going to judge God. I'm going to be present with what that means in this moment, what the Father's saying to me about what now in this moment. Yeah. We can take and try to assess every obstacle we see and fight it, or we can accept it, embrace it, and ask, what now?
So good. So good. This is the greatest, and I say this on here all the time, but for me, the greatest prayer that I've been able to pray in my life, once I got Jesus' perfect theology, it even helped more.
Yeah.
But it was, I don't know, but God is good.
Yeah.
And you used the phrase, I don't know, this happened, I don't know, but God is good. And for me, that's what faith is. And it's been the most transformative thing, because if trust is your through line, you can't have, if he isn't always good, you can't trust him. And if you can't trust him, you can't have access to his lap. You can't have access to the fruits of the Spirit, the things that are things to not just muscle up, but to actually live in the overflow of. They are experiences, the fruit of his goodness. And so my conviction, if there's anything I'm stubborn on, this is just if folks are listening, if there's anything I'm stubborn and going, how? Because what you're saying is yes, but I'm like, man, the journey for me has been, I don't know, but he's good. And I will not leave his goodness. I will be stubborn about that until that is the one thing I will not be moved from. He is good. I don't have to understand in this moment.
Yeah. And what you're talking about, going back really quickly, I know we have limited time. However you want to treat it.
This is such a fun conversation. I'm good until you're like, dude, I gotta, we're good.
Great.
But,
well, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
But you look at the conversation in the garden, and everything was an accusation against us and against God. It was, I want you to judge yourselves, and I want you to judge God. Did God really say that? Does he really want you to be like him?
Right.
Everything is trying to get us to engage the judgment. And at that point, that is where we create the illusion of separation.
Yeah.
And so when you're talking about all these pain points and saying, I refuse to say that God isn't good, it's really you saying, I am going to yield my right to judge him.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm going to yield my right to judge.
To understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because us needing an understanding is really us casting our judgments against a situation.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And when we get present in the moment and let go of our judgments, things just are. This just is sad. This just is painful. This just is enjoyable. This just is connective. We don't have to assess it. We have, and for me, I was at a crossroads where Abby almost died. And I had been begging and pleading for months on end, like, God, heal her. Because I've seen miraculous healing in my life. I've prayed for people. I've seen them healed. And no matter how hard I prayed, I couldn't see a physical healing for her. I was angry. And middle fingers to the sky, man. I was like, I hate you. A good dad would be healing her. And I was over and over engaging in this judgment. And this judgment was perpetuating this illusion of separation. So I felt this weight of abandonment in my story. The heaviness wasn't just my wife is suffering and dying. The heaviness was I feel abandoned and alone because I have participated in creating a wall between me and him in my own soul.
Yes.
And I sat there one day as I was just weeping outside of my office. There's a back parking lot that I was praying in and crying in. I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden there was this thing that came over me, and I was like, God, I realized that the one thing that I need to survive, even the loss of Abby, would be your radical love.
Yeah.
It is the only way that I could survive it. And the only way I can survive this is your love right now. And I have been alienating myself from your love in my need to judge you and judge this circumstance. And the fruit of it is so painful. And all of a sudden there was a shift that happened inside of me. And I was like, I can see that you are good. Regardless of the conditions around me, that does not define the depth, the width, the breadth of your love, your goodness, your kindness. These circumstances do not define you. You define these circumstances. And I suddenly was like, God, please forgive me for weaponizing my ability to judge against you. I release you from these judgments. I forgive you. Will you forgive me for holding these judgments against you? I'm done with them. I lay them down. And I stepped, Paul Young talks about that judgment seat so eloquently in how he's described things in the shack. And I got up off the judgment seat and I said, I'm done judging you, God. And the minute I did that, I felt this overwhelming love overtake me because now I had taken out this barrier of alienation that had been created on my end.
Yes.
And I surrendered it and threw it to the ground. And all of a sudden I truly entered into it's not just I'm doing mental gymnastics. It was now that I've gotten off this judgment seat, the Father is good. Whether I lose my wife, I lose my house, I lose my finances, I lose everything. I become broken and destitute on the side of the road. It will not define whether or not the Father is good. This is established inside of me. I no longer will be his judge, and I'm not going to sit here and be my judge inside of this anymore.
That is, bro, you've articulated so well. I think for me, I know folks listening, but that's the stubbornness, but it's a stubbornness that was given to you, but also something I've had the same, with disappointment that just builds over 20 some plus years, middle fingers at the heavens. I've got and even then knowing in my head, this makes no sense. And having to make a decision, that's what that I don't know, but he's good basically statement is it's having to make a decision. But how you articulated it, that I won't judge him, I won't hold it. And the fact that that's tied to separation, I just knew I couldn't afford, the same thing you realized, I knew I couldn't afford not to trust him. I can't afford not to trust him.
100%.
It'll kill me. It'll destroy me. And so it's a powerful thing, and to me, it really helps. And that personal story really helps when you start talking. We're having an NDE conversation, and we're talking about the sorrows of this world. To be able to personalize it and say, "Listen, we've all navigated in some way, shape, or form the hell that exists on this planet.
Yeah. I mean, because I came out of an abusive childhood, verbally, physically, emotionally. It was very abusive. There was so much darkness. I lived in chronic suicidal ideation.
Yeah.
I just wanted to end it all. I had a family, extended family that wasn't safe. I mean, my therapist told me that, Justin, when you look at your life, you actually didn't have like empathy and compassion. I don't see it anywhere in your story in your childhood. Wow. And she's like, for all realistic purposes, you should be in a very dark place of life. I mean, basically she was like, you should be a psychopath because the conditions, like there wasn't the tenderness there inside of it. Right. And I look at that. I went through a season of experiencing clergy sexual misconduct towards me. And so, I have a lot of these plot points from that to I almost died in 2016, and my wife then almost died. Right. And so you see these sufferings and you have every reason to be like, well, it's not good, or you have every reason to victimize yourself inside of it. But I'm
judge God.
Or judge God inside of it. Yeah. And instead of like, oh, but if I have an eternal perspective, this rewires everything. It doesn't mean that there's no longer pain. Yeah. It doesn't mean that the suffering doesn't exist, but it rewires the way you see things. And that the kind of the point I want to wrap that on is like, it says, you'll know them by their fruit. Come on. And the fruit is the fruit of the Spirit. And when I think about these belief systems that you're talking about, oneness, right? Instead of separation. Like I look at the NDEers, and pretty universally across the board, they all come back and quit their 9-to-5 jobs they had and redefine their entire lives, right? Like they all of a sudden get engaged in purpose. They get engaged in finding ways to love humanity and help it further itself forward.
That's cool.
So many of them, right? And what you see is both the fruit of their experience and the fruit of their beliefs produce the fruit of the Spirit. Like the fruit of the Spirit is being made manifest out of all of their encounters. And these belief systems that we walk in, like when you get rid of a punitive God that's out to just punish and all of that, and when you get rid of this gross like place of torture out of your theology, the fruit of the Spirit starts manifesting inside of your heart. Like I lived tormented with that old belief system. Yeah. I lived suffering. I lived hating life. I lived hating people. Like I couldn't resolve so much of the bitterness and resentment in that. But when I saw this God that is ever encompassing all of his creation, the high stakes disappeared out of my life, both for me, for how I had to interact with the world. Yeah. All of a sudden, my love became agenda free. Yeah. I'm like sitting there being like, how do I just love this person really well across from me? Because it's an overflow of something that's bubbling up inside of me. It becomes this, when I think of the eternity, I think of every mess that I make with my wife, and instead of running from it, I run to it and I go, how do I repair? How do I hold myself accountable? Wow. Because it's no longer about whether or not I'm being good or bad. It's about aligning with the law of love. It's about knowing I'll have to face myself no matter what. So I'm like, I want to face myself here and now. And so I want to take ownership for every destructive thing I participate in. I want to understand my heart and how it functions so that I can heal and I can build a world around me full of wholeness and whole people. Right? Like that's the fruit of this stuff. And that's where I go, I know your empty, dead religion isn't producing this stuff. Come on. And that's not an attack on people. I'm just saying that thing that you're wanting to stay attached to that offends you so much when you hear these stories, it's not producing the fruit that God's looking for. Yeah.
Yeah. Anxiety. This was the conversation I had with him years ago. It was, I will no longer participate with desperation. I will no longer participate with anxiety. Whenever those come along, show me how you see it. Like, I will never interact with you again this way. From this day forward, I'll interact with you based on your love. That's the freedom. You just preached the gospel, bro. I mean, that's what I just heard you do. You just preached. This is why it's the good news, man.
Okay, I have a question for you to wrap this up.
Yes. Let's do. Have you gotten through your notes?
Oh yeah, a while ago.
Okay, but we didn't use the word rascal once, man.
Well, here, let me throw rascal in here. Before, I used to think people were all just assholes. Now I just see them as rascals who don't know better. It's true. Like, to me, the more that I've seen eternity, I all of a sudden aren't as offended and I don't think people are horrible. I'm like, it's like Jesus, he's on the cross there, right? And he sees rascals in front of him. Right?
Come on.
He doesn't see these terrible villains inside of his story. Yeah. Like, I just want to cry thinking about this. Like, he's sitting there and he goes, Papa, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. These kiddos, these rascals, man, they don't know what they've done here. They're not evil. They're not terrible. They just don't know any better. They don't have the love to illuminate the truth of their being, the truth of me. It's not there right now. Yeah. Forgive them. And forgive them. To me, all of this has allowed me to go to such a depth of forgiveness for some of the greatest rascals who have come across my path, where I would have thought I could have never forgiven you for this behavior. Yeah. And I just see, you don't know any better. Yeah. You just don't know. You don't know the depth of his love. Otherwise you wouldn't do that. You haven't embraced the depth of that love for yourself. You haven't let go of the judgment that keeps you from the depth of that love. You don't know that you're one with God and you're one with me. So you keep violating yourself and you violate me and other people. Like, all of a sudden forgiveness overtakes me from this perspective.
And I know enough about your journey that it's just that resonates so profoundly deep, brother. The truth of this good news, the true liberty that you're describing, that we get to truly be free of resentment, truly be free and that doesn't mean that there isn't accountability, that there isn't.
Correct.
It's just that you're free to be able to love and to forgive and to participate in these fruits of the Spirit. It's powerful.
Because to me, when you said accountability on that note, I'm like, I don't have to inflict that accountability. You're going to find that accountability. Yeah. Like, you're going to come, like, going back to what I've said over and over again, we will come face to face with ourselves. Yeah. I don't have to worry about that for any individual. Yeah. Like, I'm like, I don't want to be in your shoes if you've participated too heavily in darkness, because the grief that's going to weigh, that you're going to have to trudge through in that. Like, I don't want to want to hold unforgiveness toward you, because I don't want the weight of the grief that I'm going to have to face when I face myself. I actually want to embrace this beautiful nature of Christ, which is forgiveness.
You're making me happy. You're making me happy, bro. I think this is a beautiful conversation. I love having these conversations with you. It's especially fun when we record them. But I one way or the other, let's keep having them. Yeah. We did. This is Rethinking God with Tacos. When we got together, we had what was it that we ate? It was like, it wasn't Indian. It was right there in Charlotte. You don't remember? I
don't remember. Oh, you mean recently?
Yeah.
We ate Mediterranean. It was magic.
Oh yeah. That was so good. It was good. This is Rethinking God with Tacos. Next time we get together, do tacos. But you gotta have a taco story or a taco something, or that's how we roll at the end of these conversations. Is there a taco recipe? Is there a place that in Redding that you guys have to go to? It can be an ugly taco story too,
I don't know. I have a fondness with tacos, first off, because when I lived in LA and went to film school for a couple years. Yeah. LA has the best tacos, my friend.
I'll take your word for it. Never had one there.
there are these taco trucks down there by our school. And like, we were like, kids, when they hear the ice cream truck, man, like at lunchtime, here's the taco truck outside the school. And we are like all bolting for this taco truck. And I still to this day can like taste the tacos that I'd get from those taco trucks. And
that's got nostalgia attached to it too, man.
What's that?
That's got nostalgia attached to it. Now you're describing
big nostalgia attached.
Those formative years.
Yeah.
Probably cheap tacos. You could afford them.
Absolutely, 1,000%. And we're doing wild things. We're having fun, filming the dumbest things on the face of the planet as young guys, being like, the world is our oyster. Fame is around every corner, just waiting for us to find it.
That's like back when we had the band, and after you'd do a show, and then you'd go to the worst dive in the city. There's a garbage plate at Nick Tahoe's in Rochester. These memories and plus you can eat anything. It doesn't impact your girlish figure.
That's so true. I miss those days. Jason, go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was just going to keep moving this thing along, but what you got?
I was just going to say, I'm so thankful for getting to have these stories or these conversations with you again. I love that I'm free to talk that way. And honestly, it's, you have your online Facebook group, Rethinking God with Tacos.
Yeah.
And it's so refreshing to pop in there. I told you this the other day, but it's so refreshing to pop in there and see that, because like the world is so bound up in religious thinking that there's not the freedom to actually explore God. And something that I find is so beautiful with this podcast and with the space that you've created over there in that group is that there's room for the mystery, right? There's room for the exploration. There's not the fear that's dominating people. That's one of the greatest pains of growing up in the religious institution that I encountered is for every place that I was curious, I was punished somehow by some authority figure, shut down, ran over, told that I was being heretical, even thinking that. So the freedom to ask questions and explore and put thoughts out there without getting ran over is so refreshing. And I think it's refreshing for anyone who stumbles onto this is like, I can explore. And if I'm wrong, I'm not dumb. If I find out that like, that was kind of a wild idea I had there and it probably isn't true. It's like, I'm not bad for that. That's beautiful. That's part of Jesus, getting to see the Jesus experience, like in that heavenly encounter I had where he just sat down and was like, I love your questions. Let's do this.
That's it. I love that. Thanks, bro. I mean, when did asking questions stop being allowed? I mean, when you're 2, 4, 7, 10, you're asking questions throughout your whole life, but suddenly you get into this adult stage and you're supposed to have no more questions, and religion shuts it down. Yeah. And it is a safe place, and there are some sometimes funny and crazy questions. And then every once in a while, there's somebody in there that gets, that does that religious thing. Yeah. But we're doing our very best. The point of that group was connection. And when you know what the point of the group is, then you can steward it that way. Connection requires the fruit of the Spirit. It requires kindness, and self-control is one that we circle a lot. So we're doing our best to steward that. If connection is over agreement, then you can begin to build those types of cultures. And so thanks, bro. I love that you're there. I saw that you peeked in and we're loving it. It's been
well, I was going to say, and the beauty is about that group, because I want to say this, a lot of times when people feel like they have some revelational understanding of God, they just form in another elitist religious institution, basically.
In reaction to something else.
Correct. Now we're right. Everyone else is an idiot and everyone is terrible because they just don't get this. And I have never got the feeling of that inside of that space. It's consistently like honoring of all people, no matter where they're at. And like, well, yeah, we disagree with this, but there's not an elitism. And that to me, where humility is present is where you're seeing Jesus manifest. And if our new thoughts on God aren't producing humility, then we need to really rethink the way we're approaching stuff.
So good, bro. Love that. Thanks, man. Yeah. The only thing that we are a little rigid on is tacos. You're going to get in a fight over there. No, I'm just kidding. Hey, I know folks mostly are very familiar with you, but just let folks know where they can find you real quick, and then we'll shut this down and continue after I hit stop.
Yeah. You can find me at Justin and Abby. That's abi.com. And you can also find us on The Connected Life on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. If you want to come check us out over there, we're in those spaces. We're having fun talking about all the messiest things in life. If you don't know about us, ultimately, it's like our mission is to help people learn how to come alive in the midst of their messiness. Yeah. Embrace the idea, hey, we're messy. Let's all own it. That's Abby and I's mission on the podcast, is to own how messy we are, and the beauty of love that can be made inside of our messiness, and how we actually are qualified no matter how far we've fallen off the bandwagon. So,
and I'll say this, and we'll shut it down here, but I've been listening. You both are so... you're so brilliant at communicating, at being authentic, at being able to share from your own journey in such a way that we're all able to connect to it. I think it's really helpful for folks in all relationships, but you guys speak obviously about your marriage a lot in such insightful ways to... There's transformation available for folks, man. I'm so grateful for you in my life. I count myself rich to call you a friend, and we won't wait so long to do this again. But I love this conversation. Loved having you on the podcast, man.
Love being here, and I love you. And thanks for letting us go over time on this. This was fun.
Absolutely. All right, guys. We'll see you next time.
Bye now.